Hello, welcome back, and thank you for tuning in today. We're going to talk today about acceptance, about accepting. You have heard, if you've seen several videos here or more than one, that I talk almost every time, it seems, about the importance, the practice of accepting truth just as it is. So you may have wondered, perhaps you're wondering right now, why do I say that anyway? Why? Why is that even important? We'll talk about that today. And my hope is that this will clarify some things for you. But more importantly than that, much more importantly than that, is that it will inspire you to do it, to practice, because that is where the action lies in all spirituality, no matter what tradition or traditions you're working with. It's especially true here in A Course in Miracles, where we learn by putting these ideas into practice. We do it. Mere intellectual understanding and knowledge is not enough. It is not enough. Does that have some importance? Sure, of course. Is it everything? Not even. Not even close. Because it's in our practical application of these ideas that we actually come to understand them, not with the intellect, but through our doing it. It is our experience that shows us that these ideas are true. These ideas are simple. We learn them through putting them into practice because the intellectual, rational, so-called rational thinking mind that we've been so encouraged and trained to cultivate here in the world, that thinking mind does not understand these simple ideas very easily at all. It wants to make them much more complicated than they are. That's the way the ego operates. And when we side with the ego, in other words, when we think we're separate from our brother, from God, from every other living thing, we continue to divide and subdivide and parse out what appears to be our reality into multifaceted competing component parts, which does not help us. We're looking at chapter 11, section 5 of the text, which is entitled The Dynamics of the Ego. Now, you will notice that dynamics, the word dynamics, appears in quotation marks. The ego is not dynamic because it has no power to do anything. Why? It is nothing. It does not exist. You don't have to believe in it. You don't have to. It's not dynamic in any way. And to pursue its goal of continued separation, which it thinks is happiness, has only brought you fear and suffering and trouble and more fear. Pursuing the ego's goal has gotten you nowhere, and you do know this, or you would not be interested in spirituality at all, much less in this video series, which, inspired by our inner teacher, does not mess around. You deserve nothing less than this course, and you deserve nothing less than truth. We are so keen and so quick here in the world to say, get right to the point. We become very hateful and judgmental and violent sometimes when someone doesn't cut right to the chase. What's the bottom line? The bottom line, God is. Only God is. There is no separation of any kind. The ego is nothing. It does not exist, and it does not need your allegiance. When you place your allegiance in separation, you're placing your allegiance in nothing. We're invited to switch to everything. The ego thinks that happiness lies in continued separation, in your domination of all compound phenomena, in your domination of your brother in business, in your domination of the economic world, in your domination of the intellectual realm, in your domination of this, and your struggle and strife to win this at the expense of someone else, all of it in rapt competition. The ego wants you to believe that that is happiness, yet it is fear. This may have brought you some cool stuff, some nice things to play with. Maybe a nice car, some beautiful threads, great bottles of wine. You know, things like that. Maybe a lovely house, maybe social status and prestige. Yeah. Maybe that too. So why does that not bring you the peace of God? Well, the answer is those things can't bring you the peace of God. They can only satisfy us for short periods of time, and then we want to buy a bigger house. The clothing becomes worn out, may develop holes, and we replace it. It doesn't last. Nothing in this world lasts. This certainly doesn't last. The world itself doesn't last. Anything that changes or doesn't last, anything that shifts or alters in any way is illusion. Only God is. God is constant. Love is constant. Who you really are is constant. There is no need for us to choose separation. It has brought us only fear. That's why we're interested in spirituality, because deep down we've heard the call of our inner teacher to awaken. We've heard the call to forgive the Son of God. We've set out on this thing that we refer to as the spiritual path. Whether you are actively practicing this course or not, well, here you are. This is what we're talking about. A Course in Miracles. So, what's really very important for us to understand here is from paragraph 13 of this section of the text, sentence 1, the ego analyzes, the Holy Spirit accepts. Yeah. The ego analyzes, the Holy Spirit accepts. Let's talk about this. The ego attempts to demonstrate its existence by parsing out what it perceives as reality. Remember, there is no ego. We're siding with it. So we're the ones doing this. We're the ones parsing out reality into multiple component and subcomponent parts, dividing and subdividing, classifying and subclassifying, and parsing out our existence here in the world into multiple different gradations, variations. And what do we do with all of these? Having made them up out of absolutely nothing, we judge them. We adjudge certain ones to be better than others. Certain people are cooler than others. They're more fun. They're hotter, sexier. They're more intelligent. That they have shinier stuff. They're better. They're better. And then we judge different categories of life in the same way. It's one judgment after another. And it's no wonder that we find ourselves at one point or another confused and possibly desperate for a way out, searching, yearning for a path to peace. What does that path to peace involve? Accepting. The ego analyzes. We use our scalpel-like minds that we've honed and carefully trained for years and years to parse out reality into separate component parts, separation upon separation upon separation upon separation upon separation. We're invited and encouraged to do it. We get shiny little degrees. Mine's sitting over there framed in the corner. Yeah, I mean, I've done that. What has it brought me? Well, there's a shiny frame over here in the corner that's not hanging up right now. I met some lifelong friends in the process, so that was good. But what really happened is I began to perceive the sheer emptiness of the world. And that's the best gift of all, because here we all are. So when we side with the ego, we're not accepting, we're frantically attempting to mold and fashion and divide and subdivide and make our reality into what we want it to be. And we mistakenly believe that it's going to make us happy. We're not accepting anything when we side with the ego. The Holy Spirit accepts. The Holy Spirit accepts truth just as it is. The Holy Spirit is you. Not a foreign outside power, but part of our mind, part of your mind. This is the part that speaks for God, that speaks truly, that knows who we are and will show us if we only let it. The Holy Spirit accepts, so it is in accepting truth just as it is that we awaken. It's dropping the scalpel, the razor-like thinking mind. The ideas in this course are not complicated. Reality is not complicated. Why do we find accepting it just as it is so difficult? Well, it's our conditioning. We've been trained to go and get these degrees. We've been trained to get the next best job, the next best career, the next best house, a higher degree of social status or pedigree or prestige. We want people to notice us and all of these things. Yet, the real answer to happiness and peace comes from a completely different thought system. The ego analyzes, the Holy Spirit accepts, and the ego's way has brought us nothing but frustration, fear, and suffering. Again, we may have beautiful moments, and perhaps you have a lot of money in this lifetime. All right, no problem. Perhaps you have a shiny, fancy home, and the economic troubles of the world don't really hit home for you. And you have cool stuff and nice bottles of wine or something. All right, no problem, no problem, right? What is important for each of us to realize is that that does not bring us the peace of God. Only our setting the ego aside under the guidance of our inner teacher brings us the peace of God. That's how we do it. And at this point, you may think, well, that sounds like a lot of work. Yeah, maybe I'm not up for that. All right, well, not a problem. That's a really natural thought. Let me share with you that when I first encountered this material, the fact that I would have to forgive totally and completely, meaning I would have to forgive certain people totally and completely, seemed like something that I really didn't want to do. Can anyone relate to that? It just seemed so large. And while I recognized that this was Jesus is speaking the truth here, no, I recognize the ideas in this course is true. I was reluctant at first to do the work. So if you're in that situation, it happens to all of us. What we do is we start with what's right in front of us because the Holy Spirit will show us what to do right now. It's our accepting of that, our allowing of this. That's the practice. We allow the Holy Spirit to run our experience completely, run the show. Is that threatening to the ego? Yeah, mortally so. It's existentially threatening to the ego for you to accept that it is nothing. You have a choice between exactly two things, exactly two thought systems. One, the ego. Two, the Holy Spirit. This course is all about our learning and wanting and learning and wanting some more and doing. This course is about switching our thought system completely, completely from the ego to the Holy Spirit, from illusion to truth. Anything we do on the way is deeply significant. Forgiving something as benign as a passing cloud for darkening your moment or the weather is just as significant. It's the same as forgiving the ego itself. It's the same as forgiving a historical dictator or someone who may have harmed you deeply in this lifetime. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. Sentence 1 of this text. They're all the same. They're equally powerful. So start with what you have right in front of you. The Holy Spirit won't give you more than you can handle. He knows what we can handle. And as it turns out on the path, it's quite a lot. But what we get here is a gradual process, most of us, of awakening. You're on this process. The ego always seeks to demonstrate its existence by attacking and further separation, and it posits that truth is error, that oneness with God is error. The ego would have you believe that there is no God. There's nothing but. Only God is. And we know this. We deep down know this. It's why we always come to question the ego eventually. And there are people out there right now that aren't questioning it at all. They will. When they do that, it is not up to us. What we have is what's coming up in our experience right now. That is what we are best off concerning ourselves with. And when you notice that you're caught up in somebody else's little psychodrama, forgive them, forgive the psychodrama. And if it's on social media, forgive the platform that it's posted on, because they're just giving people a forum. Give that forum over to the Holy Spirit. Ooh, yeah, how about that? Let him run your social media feed and spread love. Try it. And the ego and the Holy Spirit quite naturally see things differently. And we know, we deep down know the one that brings us peace. So you might find yourself asking, why is it so hard to differentiate? Well, actually, it's not hard to differentiate. We just have to make the choice to do it. These ideas are very, very simple. They don't need to be parsed out and divided and subdivided into multiple component parts by our rational, so-called rational, degree-pursuing minds. If you have one of these fancy degrees with a D after it, or anything like that, or certifications from the world, no problem. No problem. Give them over to the Holy Spirit for his use. Use that intellectual razor and scalpel for healing the mind. That would be very cool and very kind of you indeed. It's what's going on right now. Give it over to the Holy Spirit. These ideas are simple. God is. There is no separation of any kind. Of any kind. Not a single one of our labels, not a single one of our categorizations here in the world is true. They're all fabricated out of nothing. Who are you? You do know. You know. We're all one with God. Remember, the Holy Spirit accepts, the ego analyzes. There is no separation of any kind. The Holy Spirit accepts, the ego analyzes. Ideas leave not their source. The Holy Spirit accepts, the ego analyzes. You see where we're going with this. So my hope is that this conversation has brought at least some clarity, a degree, a modicum, a little bit or a lot of clarity into why it's so important that we accept truth just as it is. This is one of the most powerful prayers, by the way, that we could ever possibly utter. Help me accept truth just as it is. Very important. So along the way, if you have comments or questions, I would love to hear from you. They are more than welcome here. And there have been a number of excellent questions. I mean, really existentially, practically wonderful questions here in the last couple of weeks. And I always invite those. By the way, if you have an idea or a topic, something that's coming up live for you on your path that you would like to have me comment on in a video unto itself, I'm more than willing to do that. These can be very, very helpful, and not just to you, the questioner, but to everyone else. Because I guarantee you, if you've got a hot button question coming up for you. There are plenty of people all over the world whom you're completely unlikely, of course, to meet in person in this lifetime that are having the same question. And in your asking, you will benefit people that you've never met. Very cool. Very cool. We can put this technology that we enjoy here in what we call the 21st century to good use. We can give it over to the Holy Spirit. I invite you to do that with your entire experience. Now, if you have not yet subscribed and joined us, we'd love to have you. Please go ahead and do that. This arrow in the corner of your screen is the subscription prompt. When you click or hover over that, you'll be invited to join us. So please go ahead and do that. Thank you to all of you who have recently tuned in. What's going on here is we're going through the text of A Course in Miracles, which, if you haven't noticed, is quite extensive and long, and we're only going a few paragraphs at a time. So when you determine that you've got a question that you'd like to see me cover here for this entire audience worldwide, go ahead and pop that in the comment thread and ask. You'll be glad that you did for many reasons, for many reasons. So thank you, as always, for tuning in and for joining me. And I will see all of you again very soon.